So a lot of stuff going on, obviously. I mean, from my standpoint, what's really fascinating is, I follow the automotive space very closely, but what's been very interesting about the last week or two is that there's, when you think about this Musk ecosystem or this Musk sort of thing that is becoming bigger by the day, it seems like. It's like the entire story, not just with Tesla, but really the Tesla adjacent stuff. Like it's becoming part of culture. It's becoming part of the zeitgeist, right? So you have the CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, X, so on and so forth, making these very big, high-profile appearances everywhere. It's almost like the rest of the world is being exposed to the brain that has created Tesla. And they're starting to get an idea they're starting to get an idea of what makes this guy tick, right? And I think for people that have followed Tesla very, very closely for a really long time, I think one of the main things that people, at least this is my opinion, and I'd love to hear sort of how the people are thinking about this if people want to talk about this. But I think one of the main reasons that I became really enthralled with the Tesla story back in 2012, 2013 was because of Elon and sort of his leadership style, how he tackled problems, the way he thought about issues was super unique, and that was like the big thing that told me, holy crap, there's probably something here. And then once you start digging into the company, Tesla, specifically, then you're like, wow, okay, so you have this great leader who's thinking about stuff in a very different way. And I really love what Ryan was saying, especially around sort of his leadership style and how he does all that stuff. But now I think we're getting this at scale across not just Tesla, but basically everything that he, in a way, is part of, either directly or sort of passively. So that's been super fascinating to watch. And the one thing that I've been really interested in tracking is what is the public perception of Elon? What's the public perception of Tesla as he gets bigger, right? Because I think that's an important thing to keep an eye on if you're somebody who's really thinking about the Tesla story long term. I know a lot of Tesla folks are investors as well in the company, and that's something that is very interesting to me. It's like, okay, so does the CEO of the company actually positively or negatively impact Tesla's success? And what I'm starting to realize is I think sort of the thing that has gone off, this light bulb that has gone off for me sort of recently, is that I really think, and Ryan sort of talked about this, I really think being an honest, transparent, flawed human being, as long as you're being honest with yourself and you're not trying to bullshit people and you're just being yourself, that is by far the best way to get people on your side, especially when you make mistakes and you own up to them, right? And I think we're seeing this live with this sort of Musk arc right now. And if you think about all the turmoil that happened when he bought the X, when the stupid tweets that come out of him from time to time, that oftentimes get blown out of proportion by legacy media, which, they will do because that's how they'll bring eyeballs to their firms, and that's how they make money. So it's almost like, he said it himself, like I'm also almost loading up a gun and I'm giving it to them. It's like, that's exactly what he's doing. This is how legacy media profits. And this is why when Trump runs for president, they're always constantly running against him, because Trump gets clicks, Elon gets clicks, right? So what's been very fascinating to track is, even though there has been a lot of controversial things that have come out of Elon, I don't think the brand in Tesla specifically has suffered from a mass perspective. If anything, and this might be me going out on a limb here, I think it's helped it in a way, because it's bringing a lot of awareness to the businesses that I don't think many people would have even thought about thinking or making it part of their daily lives. And so one of the anecdotal ways that I try to track this is by going to a bunch of different YouTube videos, right? Just YouTube videos that involve Elon, from MSNBC, from Fox, from CNN, from a bunch of independent publications. And the overwhelming majority of comments from folks is positive towards Elon specifically. And so if you say, okay, so that's true, and then you look at Tesla's sales for the last year, 2023, so we'll have a month left, and you think about when Elon bought the company back in October of 2022, X in this case, or Twitter, Tesla's still growing. Tesla's still growing. It's still doing extremely well. They just launched the Cybertruck, and that's making the internet go on fire. You have publications like Haggerty that Jason Camisa, who went into it thinking that he would have to say nice things about the car. Instead, he couldn't help but say nice things about the car. You have the Model Y, the best-selling car in the world. You got Ford cutting F-150 Lightning production by half starting in 2024, which I believe is going to be even less than that if you really think about it. You have GM pulling back EV plants, so on and so forth. So now you have this entire picture that I think proves that whatever Elon's doing right now, it's a net benefit to his brand. It's a net benefit to Tesla. And I think, and to say otherwise, I think might be missing the bigger picture. Because now that he's talking about more political stuff, now that he's talking about engaging in things that are controversial, and I totally get the idea of like, hey, you're not helping yourself. Like there's different ways of doing this. You don't have to do this, right? You don't have to engage in the way you're engaging. But I don't think he can help himself. And so the idea becomes, okay, so given that, is this a net positive or a net benefit? And I really think, at least from my standpoint, it appears to be quite the net positive because of exactly what Ryan said. Because I think there's a lot of people being inspired by a person who is breaking the mold, is disrupting the way leaders act, is disrupting the way leaders are perceived. And even though that's super uncomfortable for some folks, which I completely respect and understand, you have to remember that this is a guy who makes a living off of breaking shit, right? And this is why Tesla works. This is why SpaceX works. This is why Neuralink works. This is why X works, right? It's just now we've opened this up to the masses. So now the rest of the world gets to see the madness, the chaos. And I think more people are waking up to the fact that, hey, for you to actually be innovative and to really break stuff for the better, you have to go through a period of chaos. You have to go through a period of insanity. You have to go through a period of mistakes and things that are not correct. And the only way to get to the other side so that it's actually better for humanity, you have to own up to your mistakes. You have to ensure you're correct and moving forward. And then you keep breaking stuff, right? So I think this is what's the most interesting thing about this time right now. Is like watching it as an outsider and trying to really take in all the different variables. It's just so fun. It's so fun to track. Uncomfortable at times. Let's be honest. It's uncomfortable at times, but it's fascinating nonetheless. And I think there's just sort of a seismic shift happening in a lot of different arenas, and it still feels like the tip of the iceberg. So I think I agree with Larry. The interesting thing here is like I'm trying to practice this thing that I'm probably going to fail at, which is to temper my expectations. I'm really bad at this, and I'm going to try really hard in 2024. That's going to be my New Year's resolution come January 1st. It's going to be temper my expectations and add an extra day of the gym, go from 4 to 5 days a week. But the reason why I feel so optimistic, and this is where I agree with Larry, is you have a combination of factors that are sort of all culminating around the same year. So what are they? EV tax credit in the US going point of sale. I think that's a huge deal. Tesla being able to retain the EV tax credit on the Model Y while competitors lose it. So Mach-E, for example, and this is something Omar brought up, or Sawyer. I think everybody did. I forget exactly who it was that broke it first. But you're going to have the Mach-E going from a $3,750 EV tax credit to zero. The Model Y is going to retain its EV tax credit, and that's going to allow the Model Y to take advantage of that at point of sale, right? So it's going to be better price versus competition, and it's going to start being at point of sale. In addition to that, you have all the costs from batteries, from the spikes that we've had since COVID. Those take time for it to flow through the supply chain. Boom, there you have another factor where into 2024, as their factories ramp, as the rest of the EV market in the United States especially, they pull back, which will open up supplier capacity, which means that Tesla will have an advantage when it comes to negotiating contracts for these things, because the suppliers have built capacity for what the initial targets were, I'm assuming. And so Tesla's going to take advantage of lower pricing. Then you have scaling factories. There should be no new projects. I think Mexico will probably start next year, but it might be slow. But you're going to have a better leverage of your existing factory. So that's going to dramatically improve margin. You got version 12, which, maybe I shouldn't say anything about version 12. But you have all these different things happening. And then on top of that, you have Cybertruck. Right, and the Cybertruck becomes the billboard for the company. It's going to start ramping somewhere between maybe 50 to 100,000 units in the year. 100,000 if you're very optimistic. 50,000 I think is kind of reasonable for 2024. And you all tell me if I'm thinking about this incorrectly. But you have all these factors starting to culminate around this. And it's hard not to get excited. And then on top of that, if the inflation numbers start coming in the way that they've been trending, in theory, you might have a situation in 24, especially if the economy continues to not collapse and inflation comes all the way down, then you have a better lending environment for loans as well. So now you'll have a Model Y that theoretically should continue to go down in price, and Model 3 that should continue to go down in price. And you have the POS, the EV tax credit at point of sale with lower interest rates. So these are three things that should drive prices down lower into 2024, which is going to increase the amount of cars Tesla is going to be able to ship. But in theory, Tesla should also be able to retain really good margins on that because they'll be able to take the savings on the manufacturing side as well through scaling.